Hilchis Matami Mishkav Umoshav Perik Shmini. Kvar biyarnu betchila sefer zeh, shem heset ha'odam es atuma, shehi matame b'masa, nitma mishum nesei. Now there's a tumas masa. Tumas masa means a person goes ahead and carries something which is matame b'masa. For example, an avela. An avela is matame b'mago b'masa. Someone goes ahead and carries an avela, even though he didn't touch it, so he becomes tummy. And al der zeh, if a person would go ahead and carry a zov is also matame b'mago b'masa, so he becomes tummy because he's noise es azov. He's noise is something which is matame b'masa. Now normally something which is matame b'masa means that when a person that's tor carries the dover that's tummy, which is matame b'masa, he becomes tummy. Masha'enkin, if there's a dover atome, a person that's tummy, for example, and that person went ahead and moved something else, so it's not masa means the tor carried the tummy. Or not only he carried the tummy, he moved the tummy, which has a din as if he carried it. But if you have a tummy which moved the tor, so then the tor doesn't become tummy. The tor doesn't become tummy by the tummy moving him. The tor could become tummy by him moving the tummy because he has a din of anesis tummy. That's what he's saying. A person that moves a tumah, which that tumah has a din that it's mitame b'masa, is nitma b'shem neisei, because moving something has a din as if you carried it. Aval misita hatumah sa'adam, but if someone that's tummy went ahead and moved the adam is lay nitma, the person doesn't become tummy because the tummy moved him. That's a regular din of tumah, which is mitame b'masa. Masa means the person carried the dover tummy, not the dover tummy moved the dover ator. Ein b'chol halacha beis, ein b'chol ovis hatumas kulam tumah, shem tosit to sa'odam ator o yisakeli ator to tameisam, ela hazov e chaver bulvad. That's a special din of a zov and chaverov, that they are metame b'tumas hesed. Hesed means that the tame moved the tor, not the tor moved the tame, but that the tame moved the tor. V'zui atuma yisei b'zov. This is the extra tumah by zov shlei motzinu k'meisa b'chol atera. Shem heset es hateirim tmeim. If a zov or the chaverov moved someone that's tor, or a keli that's tor for that matter, it's also tummy. Kesad hoiso keira mutelis arish agoder. You have a beam that's lying on top of a goder, and v'odem tor a kelim afilu klicheres al ktsosa. You have a person that's tor or a klicheres even, which on one side of this keira, and v'heinid hazov is hakotz hasheni. And the Zov went and moved the other end of this beam. So basically the Zov moved this Adam, or he moved this Klicheres. As Hail v'nesnadnu du machmas Azov. As a result of the Zov, this Adam moved, or the Klicheres moved, is arezek mishnagavim, and has a din as if he would have touched them, and therefore Tmeim v'nasu rishon l'tumah din teira. So they become a rishon l'tumah din teira. The din of Hesed applies when he touches a keli, when he touches a adam, or when he touches a klicheres. So we're saying even if he moved the keli or the adam that he was matami them, and if he went ahead and carried them, so he's certainly matami them. You have to understand what's the ve'in tzarech lemer. There's a special din of heset hazov, whereas normally a tummy, even if he carries a Torah, is not tummy. Whereas this din that a Torah that carries a tummy is tummy. If he carries a tummy or he moves a tummy. Now if a tummy moves a Torah or if a tummy carries a Torah, so it's not tummy. So over here we're saying that when the Zav moves an Adam or a Keli, it's tummy. And then the Ram writes, Ve'in tzorech lemer, she'im nosa Zav es Adam, es hakelim shetima. So the Churut tzorech bir, what's the Ve'in tzorech lemer? That's the first din. Then the Ram says, "Vechad zov is zov en nida v'yiledes b'chol advarim ha'elu." Is hini lemadato? Sha'adam ha'ator shehisit hazazov. So when the adam ha'ator moves the zov, so then he's nitmim shum nesi zov. That tum is mitzad nesi zov. But hazov shehisit hazator. When the zov moves the tor, bein adam min kelim afilu klicheres, so then is tmeim mipnei shahanodas hazov lacherim kilu nogabem. That's a special din. When a Zav moves something, so it's as if he touched it, and Memela it's as if he touched, and that's the Chiddush also by a klicheres, that by a klicheres, even though normally a klicheres is not metame tuma only mitoichai, but lepeil, since the tuma over here is because the zav moved it, and by the zav moving it, it has a din as if he touched it, so it has a din as if he touched the inside of it. That's the next halacha. Halacha gimel. Chemer beheset hazav magoy, she'im noga beklicheres hamukav samid pasul tor. If he goes ahead and touches this klicheres, it's tor because he's touching it from the outside. And since he's touching from the outside, the klicheres is not metame from the outside. However, vim hisiti, but if he moves the klicheres, is timu, and the pashtus l'chura the dvarim is because when he moves the klicheres, he's not only moving the outside of the klicheres, he's also moving the inside of the klicheres. So it's kilu, he was naga the inside of the klicheres. V'chein klicheres shuhu novav kekadur v'adayin li nasili peh. So notice it was never really opened. It's a klicheres which is hollow on the inside. And it never was opened. K'mei ilfis in the Iranians, certain types of pots, which were never opened. So the din is again, may sitan azov tmeim. Afalpi shehin teirim be'elames, even though an elames the tar, because the gather of elames means an elames is filled with tumah, and that tumah doesn't go into the klicheres because the klicheres is cold, is closed. It's either mokav samid pasul or the klicheres is melchatchila, not opened. So I'll call upon him. So the tumah which is in the oil can't go into the klicheres. Mashengan over here, it's not a question of a tumah going into the klicheres. The din is that since he's moving the klicheres, as a din like he's touching it, and since he's also moving the inside, so Mele has a din as if he's touching the inside. That's what he's saying. Aval b'shein terim be'elames sharin ki klicheres hamukav samid paschal shepischi sosum. But nevertheless, over here, benegei haset of a zov, it becomes tummy. So b'kitzur, we're learning over here a din that when a zov moves something, so that a keli or a adam, so that adam and keli becomes tummy. And even though he wouldn't be able to become tummy if he would touch it, because he's touching it from the outside, but when he moves it, it also becomes tummy. Yeah. V'chein machat shahoyse blua b'techetz. You have a machat, a needle, which is mekabel tumah, but it's blua b'techetz. You have no access to it. It's not mekabel tumah's maga. Or the tabasa blua b'techalevena. You have a ring, which is also mekabel tumah, and it's in a brick. And v'heset hazoves or eitzer say alevena. So he's not metamid metumas maga because it's not accessible. You can't touch it. However, since the zov moved it, and it doesn't really have a din of a blua. In other words, when something is a blua in a gufa adam like we learned, so then it's not shachs to mekabel tumah. But over here, it is shachs to mekabel tumah. The only reason why it's not mekabel tumah is because, in an oil ames, it would also be mekabel tumah because the oil ames goes into the. In other words, it's not considered a blua, so melas mekabel tumah by oil ames. But over here, it can be metabel mukumas maga. In other words, over here, it can be metabel tumas maga because it's not. You can't touch it. But nevertheless, it could be metamid tumas hesed. That's what he's saying. V'tabas ablua b'tech halavena or vatit or v'hesed azovis or eitzus halavena is nitmu hakelim abluin shebetechon v'chein kol keitzibus. So that's what we're learning the din that there's a tumas hesed. That's a chiddush b'negei azov and v'chaveirov that they're metamid tumas hesed. Now zov shehichnas yodi ragli la'aver klicheres. He just put in his hand and he put it into the aver. And also so if he actually touches the klicheres from the inside, so then he would become tummy because he touched the klicheres. Masha'enkin, if he's in the aver klicheres, so the Rambam is saying that a zov is not metame by the fact that his hand or part of his body is in the aver of the klicheres. So that's how the Rambam teaches that Eina Nida Metamale Varim means a Nida, if she touches something, she becomes tummy. Masha'enken, if the Nida, part of her finds herself in Aver Klicheres, so that part of her is not going to go ahead and be Metame the Klicheres. That's how the Rambam learns. The Ravid argues and learns that that's not the Pshat. And Eina Nida Metamale Varim, it means to say that we said before that Mishkav Azov has to be Dafke Rev of the Zov, a Rev of the Nida. It has to be Dafke when the Rev of the person is doing the Mishkav in America. That's what it means, Eina Nida Metame Levarim. But the Rambam learned that Eina Nida Metame Levarim means that if part of the Nida finds itself in Aver Klicheres, so then the Aver Klicheres is not tummy. Even though the Mashal Sheretz, if part of the Sheretz is in the Aver of the Klicheres, so the klicheres is tummy because lepeil, the klicheres is the sheretz is metame, and even if it touches a part of the sheretz touches something, it's metame. So al derez if part of the sheretz is in the aver of the klicheres, it's also metame the klicheres. Mashenkin bayanida and azov over there, the fact that part of him is inside the aver is not metame. Only if it actually touches the klicheres mitechi, then it's metame. Halacha hey. Now, just Hagdama, we learned till now a zav that moves a tor, so he's metame al hesed, and that din of hesed is as if he touched him. So normally we say when a tummy moves a tor, the tor doesn't become tummy. That was the chiddush by a zav, that when a zav moves a tor, it's tummy as if he touched him. That's the din of hesed hazov. Now there's another din, the pashta din, that if someone moves the zav, so then he's tummy al noise. There's a din of noise hazov, and there's a din of hesed hazov. When the zav moves the tor, so then he's metame the tor al hesed hazov. When the tor moves the zav, so then he's metame the tor al hesed hazov. Now there's a din of beis hastorim. Beis hastorim we learned before that if a person has a part of his body which is covered, that's called beis hastorim. Now if someone carries tumah in his beis hastorim, the beis hastorim, he's carrying the tumah in his beis hastorim, so memela he's also metame al din noise. Al din noise he's metame also beis hastorim. So memela it comes out that l'moshel if someone moves a zav, but he moves a zav through his beis hastorim. How do you move a zav through beis hastorim? Let's say you have a stick, you have a fold in your stomach, and then you have a stick sticking out, is sticking into that fold. So in other words, the fold is actually coming, the stick is actually coming from that fold in the stomach, so it's from the beis hastorim, and you go ahead, and with that stick, which is sticking out from the beis hastorim, from the fold in the stomach, you go ahead and you move a zav. The Torah goes ahead and moves the zav. So basically, moving the zav has a din as carrying the zav. And if you carry in the beis hastorim, you're tummy. So Ramel, if you have a stick sticking out from a fold in the stomach, which is the beis hastorim, and you go ahead and you move a zav with that stick, so you become tummy because it has a din as if you carried him in the beis hastorim. Masha'enkin fakert, we learned before that if you have a zav, this is talking about a tor, move the zav. Now what about fakert? If you have a zav that moved the tor, so normally a zav that moves the tor is tamim mitzad hesed. So here we're going to learn that if the zav moved the tor through a stick, which that stick was stuck into the fold in the stomach, so there's the kumte, so he was not matame, because just like if he would touch in the beis hastorim, he wouldn't be tummy. So al derech zeh, when he moves something with the beis hastorim, he's also not tummy. That's halacha. Halacha zov shoyekona onus ochus b'teich kumte. He has like a stick that's sticking into his kumte. Kumte means, let's say, the fold in the stomach. V'hisit b'ksei hakona, and he went ahead and he moved the tor with the edge of this corner, which this corner is stuck into the fold of his stomach. So the din is harei and teirim. So those kalim which were moved, again, a sov that moves a keli or a adam, that becomes tummy. That's the chiddush of hesed. Now the Rambam is saying that hesed doesn't happen if the hesed was done through the beis hastorim. How do we know that? Shenemar v'chela sheyiyu be'azov. Anything the zov touches, v'yodav l'shotet b'mayim, which means he wasn't in the table, so it's matami. Mipi hashmul lamdu shakosiv hazem medaber behesed hazov. So even though it says yiga be'azov, it doesn't really mean yiga be'azov. It means that the zov moved. If it means the zov moves, so why does the Torah say yiga? V'heitzir b'loshen negia, and the Torah writes hesed, and he says it in the loshen of negia. Leimar ma negia b'yodav. In order to be metame b'negia, it has to be either with yodav or adem yodav mishar gufei, which is hagoli eitzel hanegia. So in order to touch something and to become tummy, it's only if you touch it with a aver hagoli, not with the beis hastorim. Something that touches the beis hastorim doesn't become tummy. Is af hesete, when you're masid something. You're masid something. No, that's the din that the zov is masid is at sheyosid begoli shebegufei. It has to be. He has to move it with the goli shebegufei. Le sheyosid beis hastorim. Not that he moves it with the beis hastorim. Now that's talking about when the beis hastorim was in the zov and he wants to be metame b'tumas hesed. But fakert hoya akone bekumti shultor, if the kone was stuck into the fold of the tor, and vehezed be'azov, and he went ahead and moved the zov, not the zov moved him, but he moved the zov, and now he's going to be tomei al tumas masa, so then he's tomei. Shamesa, this atuma is someone that moves tumah is doch kinesi. It has in like his noise, kshem shanesi b'sastorm tomei, k'misha b'yaned b'tchila sefer zed, that this Ptur of Beis HaStorim is only Benegea Tumas Manga and not Benegea Tumas Masa. When a person carries something that's Matame B'Masa, even if he carries it in his Beis HaStorim, he also becomes Tame. Is Kach HaMesed Beis HaStorim, if he moves someone with he moves someone that's Tame with the Beis HaStorim, which has the same din, like Masa, so he's also Tame. Kach HaMesed Beis HaStorim Tame. Halacha Vov. Hazov B'Kaf Miznaim, you have a Zov which is standing on a scale. The keli hosi lemishkav lemerkav b'kav shniya kenegde. And on the other side of the scale, you have a scale that they measure against each other, and on the other side of the scale, you have a keli which is osi lemishkav lemerkav. So then, as I say, kara zov. If the zov goes down, so basically the zov moved the mishkav lemerkav. So then, as harein kikelim shenagim, so it has a din of hesed. The Zov is not Mishkav America because he's not leaning, because he's not being raised by the Kalim Fakert, he raised the Kalim. So Memela, so it has a din of Haset HaZov, is Arein Ki Kalim Shenogabem, so these Kalim have a din of Kalim Shenogabem, Shari Hisitam, because he moved them, he raised them up. However, Karuhain, if they went down and he was raised, is Arei Lutmei Mishum Mishkav. So now these Kalim, which caused the Zov to be raised, have a din of Mishkav HaZov. And Memela v'nasuav sharei nasu azov. They carry the zov. Ukilo amid aleim, as if he stood on them. Hoya b'kaf shniya sh'ar kelim ha'echlin mashkin liyadam. So in other words, if there was kelim which are Mishkav Umoshav, so then as we said before, that if the zov goes up, so then they're tummy al Mishkav Umoshav and they're an avatuma. Mashenkin, if we're dealing with an adam or kelim which are not royal mishkav umeshav or eklum mashkin, so they can't become an avatuma al mishkav umeshav, is ben shekaru hein, whether they went down or ben shekara hazov, is kul on rishon l'tuma. Now if kara hazov, so it comes out that the zov carried them, so the zov is mitami them al tumas hesed. He's mitami al tumas hesed. Mashengen if karu hein, so l'chura the zov didn't carry them, they carried the zov. So if the Adam that carries the Zav is Tommy Tumas Masa, he's Tommy Tumas Masa, Masha'inkin, the Oichlin Lamashkin, and Alderazah, the Kalim which aren't Ruyin Lemerkov, so they're not Tommy Tumas Merkov because they're not Ruyin Lemerkov and they're Oichlin Lamashkin, and they're also not Tommy Al Tumas Haset. So the Chura, so why should they become Tommy Al Srishan Latuma? That's a Shverikite Lechura over here. Why is the Oichlin Lamashkin or Kalim which ain't a Ruyin Lemerkov consider a Rishon L'Tumah? So the answer is because Sof Kol Sof, if there's no Metzias where, in those, you're not saying that it went, these Kalim went down, and or the Kalim, or the Eichel Mashkin, the other went down, and therefore, since they're not Metame as Mishkav Azov, they should be Torah. Because Sof Kol Sof, it's Pashut that the Zov also moved them. In other words, they went down and up a little bit, so there was a certain movement in these Kalim as a result of the Zov. So Memela, they definitely have a din of a Hesed Hazov. Even if Lepel, the Kalim, and the Adam went down, they have a din of Hesed Hazov. It's just that if the Royal Merkav and Lepel, the Zov went up, so Memela, they have a din of Merkav Hazov. Masha'inkan, if they're not Royal Mishkav or Meshav, they're not Mekabel the Tumas Merkav, so Memela, they're at least Mekabel the Tumah of Hesed Hazov. Ay Lechura, the Zov went up. The answer is the Zov ultimately went up, but he didn't go up straight. In other words, there was a time that the Zov was causing them to move. So Memela, they have a din also of Hesed HaZov. Halacha Zayin. The Yisod of Halacha Zayin is that if a Zov causes the Torah to move, or really if the Torah causes the Zov to move, so then the Torah becomes Tommy. In other words, if the Zov causes the Torah to move, so then the Torah is Tommy Mitzat Tumas Hesed. If the Torah causes the Zov to move, so then he's Tomei al Tumas Noisei. Noisei is Hazov. When you cause the Zov to move, you're a Noisei is Hazov. So over here we're talking about situations where you're not actually going ahead and moving him, but you're doing things together which inevitably will cause you to move him. That's the cases in this halacha. Halacha Zayin. Hazov v'ator sheyoshvo al asafsol haneser bizman she'ei margilin. They're sitting together on a bench, or they're sitting on a plank of wood, and bizman she'ein margilin, in a time when this plank of wood is not a firm piece of wood, it's not a firm bench. They're shaking. That's from lashon chiger, just like someone that limps. So he shakes. So the same way, this bench or this piece of wood is moving. It's shaking. Oy she'olu bi'ilon shekechira. They both went together up on a tree, but that tree is not a strong tree. It's a tree which is kechira. It's a shvacha tree. What does a shvacha tree mean? V'hu ilon she'en bu'uvi ikre kedei lochu kreve hakav. That if the trunk is not large enough that you could able to hollow out in it the size of something which is a reva kav. A kav is a sixth of a saw, so a reva kav is a 24th of a saw. If it's not big enough that you could be able to hollow out in it the size of a reva kav, so that would mean that it's a shvacha tree. Oy she'olu b'soicha shekechira. They went up on a branch which was kechira. What does it mean kechira? V'hu shenech babo. You could hold this soicha. You could take it. You could completely cover it with your hand. You could cover it with your hand. And v'doichi keisitazes bo. In other words, when you cover it with your hand and you move it, it'll move. So that means that this branch is a shvacha branch. So when the two of them go up on this tree or on this branch, they're moving each other. Oi, another situation, sha'olu b'sula mitzri. A sula mitzri means a small ladder. It's a small ladder. So again, it's not a firm ladder. So again, she'ene kavua b'masmer, and this ladder is not connected with a nail. If it would be connected with a nail, so that would stop it from moving. It would cause it to be firm. Masha'enkin, it's a sula mitzri, it's a small ladder, and it's not connected with a nail. Oy sha'olu ala kevesh v'ala kerev v'ala delis. They made a ramp, and that ramp was made either from a regular ramp or a keira, which is a beam of wood, or a delis is a door. They didn't connect this ramp with tit, so therefore it's a ramp that would be wobbling. In other words, when they're going up on this ramp, so the ramp would be moving. So the din is hareze tame. So the din is that this tor becomes tame if he goes up again. If he's sitting on this safsul, this nesser together with a zov, or he's going up on an ilon shekechira with a zov, or he's going on a seicha, which is a shvacha seicha, or he's going on this ramp, going on the sula mitzri, which doesn't have a nail connecting it, or he's going on this ramp or this keira, which are not mechuber betit. So in all these cases, the Torah becomes tummy, mipnei shehein misnadin b'mehem, because they're shaking on these items. Uki'ilu heset hazov es haTorah sheimei. It's as if the zov was mesed the Torah sheimei, and since he was mesed the Torah sheimei, so therefore he has a din of tumas mesed, and lechura also who adin that the Torah was mesed the zov, and since the Torah was mesed the zov, so also he has his tummy als tumas nesed. They're both the same tumah. Tumas nesed is a rishon l'tumah, and tumas mesed is a rishon l'tumah. Now there's an issue lechura. There's a svara that when the zov, the Torah maybe causes like the zov to go up. When he's mesed, he's like picking up the zov. So we had before Benigea when they're both on a miznayim, and the kalim, which are royal Mishkav Umoshav, causes the zov to go up. So then they become tamei tumas of Mishkav Umoshav. Mishkav Umoshav is a tumas avatuma. So over here there's an issue, l'chura, this Torah that's walking on this ramp, for example, if he's causing that the zov to go up, so l'chura, he's causing the zov to go up, and his clothes are also causing the zov to go up. So there would be a svara that maybe those clothes should have a din of a mishkav. Mishkav azov should become an avatuma, not only a rishon l'tumah, which comes through the fact that the zov was mason. So the answer that's given is that lepel, it's not the clothes which is causing the zov to go up. The person is walking. Because even if the Torah is walking on this ramp and it causes the Zov to go up, but Lepel, he is causing the Zov to go up. It's not the clothes that he's wearing. If he wouldn't be wearing clothes, the Zov would also go up. So therefore, the clothes doesn't have a din of Mishkav Azov, and since they don't have a din of Mishkav Azov, so the Memela, they're only a Rishon L'tum and not an Avatum. Akoponim, the din is that in such a case, this person, Alderaz his Begodim, all have a din of Mishkav Hazov. They have a din of Rishon L'tumah, because the Zov was mesed them. The Zov was mesed them. That could be why the Rambam speaks about the Zov being mesed them and not them being mesed the Zov. Because if you're talking about them being mesed the Zov, so then it wouldn't apply to the Begodim. So then it wouldn't apply to the Begodim. Masha'enkin, when you speak about the Zov being mesed them, so say he's tummy, the person, the Torah is tummy, and al derech zeh, the Begodim are Torah. I'll call upon. Ukihilu hesed hazov es hator sheimei. Avalim yoshvu b'sinuk dela. That's if they were sitting on an area which they're shaking each other. But if they're sitting on a large ship, she'ena yechoyle lahasid ba'adam, a person doesn't cause the ship to shake. Eyal hanesra eyal hasafsel b'zman she'ena margirim. If they're sitting on a plank of wood or on a bench which is einon margirim, they're not shaking. Eisha olu be'ilon b'seicha shekechen yafa, not on a tree which is kecher ra but kechen yafa. Oy besula mitzri, which is yekavua b'masmer, even though it's a small ladder, but it's yekavua b'masmer. A bekevish u'bekero b'delis, which is yeshem mechubr barim b'tit. Before he was talking about there wasn't mechubr b'tit, therefore they were shaking. Mashenken, they are mechubr b'tit. Afilo olu mitzadecha, they both went on the same side. Is nevertheless hariza tor, because we don't assume that the zov was mesed the tor, and al derazeh we don't assume that the tor was mesed the zov. That's this din. That's this din. Now there's a shtickle or over here in Pshat that we're talking about a zov v'ator which Yoshua al-Safsel. The pashtus Safsel is a keli. L'chur of the Safsel is a keli, so the Safsel should l'chur be makabel tuma als din Mishkav Azov. He should be als Mishkav Azov. He's standing on top of the Safsel. He's sitting on the Safsel. Now once he's makabel tuma als Mishkav Azov, so l'chur of the Torah should be makabel tuma als sitting on Mishkav Azov. We learned before when a Torah sits on Mishkav Azov, he's mutame. So Eina Chinami, the Zov didn't move him. He didn't move the Zov. But typically that he should become Tommy mitzad the din of sitting on Mishkav Azov, because the Safsel should have a din Mishkav Azov. So Mefarshim asks this kasha in Mishnayos, and the answer you have to say over here that this Safsel is talking about a Safsel which is not Makabel Tumah. You know, you're going to have to make it, although it's not clear in Rambam, the Rambam doesn't make it clear, but Pashto a Safsel is a Keli. But here we're talking about a Safsel which is not Makabel Tumah. It's either a Safsel Shel Evan, it's a Safsel which is not Makabel Tumah, and since it's not Makabel Tumah, so therefore it's not Makabel Tumah al Mishkav Azov, and Mele, if it's not Makabel Tumah Mishkav Azov, so Mele it can't convey Tumah to the Torah. The only way they could convey Tumah is by the fact that the Tomei moved the Torah, or the Torah would move the Tomei, but not via the Safsel. Halacha Ches. Zov v'Tor shoyushneim ke'echad magifin es adelas e peschen. They were both closing the door together, or they were opening the door. Is a Torah, because although they're both participating in the same activity, but neither of them moved the other. There's no reason to assume that either of them moved the other. And Memela, they're both Torah. However, one was closing, one was opening, so obviously they were moving each other. So therefore, nitma, so the Torah becomes tummy. Either the Torah becomes tummy because he moved the Zov, or the Torah becomes tummy because the Zov moved him. Now, helu zeh zem and aber, they picked each other out from a bear. Izim atomi helis hator is timohu mipnei she'asitei. So then the Tomei was Mesed the Torah, since he picked him up and he took him out of the bear. So that's Hesed, he Mesed the Torah. The Ima Torah Helis HaTomei, and if the Torah took out the Tomei, is Nitme B'Masoy. So Memela, he comes Tomei because he's being Mases HaZov. You know, he's carrying the Zov, he's pulling out the Zov. Since he's pulling out the Zov, Kamesha B'Yarno, so he becomes Tomei. Either way, they become a Rishon L'Tumah. Whether it's a Hesed or Masa, either way, it's a Rishon L'Tumah. And b'pashtus, it doesn't go on the begodim, because when a person, l'mashal, pulls out the zov from the bear, so you're not going to say that the begodim are holding up the zov. In other words, he's wearing begodim taka, but he as a person is pulling out the zov. So he's, in other words, there's a musig when a person holds something, so it's masa. He's noises azov. Now a person can't be a tumas merkav. But the begodim could be a tumas merkav. But over here there was no merkav on the zov. On the begodim. In other words, the person wearing clothes pulled out the zov. So he, as a person, became Tommy because of Tumas Neise. When he's Neise, he's also Metame Begodim. That's the din. He's Metame Begodim. But the Begodim itself is not a Merkav. So many little Begodim also have a din of a Rishon L'Tumah. Halacha Tes. Zov v'tor shehoyu mafshilim b'chavolim. They were twining ropes. They were putting ropes together. If each one was pulling in a different direction, so the way they were making the ropes together, so they were pulling in a different direction, is nitma. So then they become tummy, because, as we said before, when two people are doing something, and each one is going in a different direction, so obviously each one is pulling the other, so he's moving the other. So either the Zov moved the Torah, or the Torah moved the Zov, or both. And Memela, the Torah became tummy. Now Hoya Ergim, they were both weaving together. bein be'emdim, bein b'yeshvim, whether they were sitting and weaving together or standing and weaving together, oy toichanim, or they were grinding together, oy perkin min hachamer eiteanim, or they were unloading a chamer, a donkey, or loading a donkey. So it depends. When the loading and unloading, bisman shemasoyin covered, when we're dealing with a heavy load, is areza tummy, then he's tummy. V'mhoya masoyi kal is tor. So Vaister has been again. I don't have the tzir exactly. When they weave together, so or when they grind together, so then we assume that they move each other. So rather the activity together works that they're moving each other. There's a certain movement that each one is causing the other one to move, and therefore they're tummy. Now, when they unload something together or they load together, so it depends. If we're dealing with a heavy load, a light load, so we're not moving each other. Each one, we're carrying the load together. Both of them are not moving each other. Each one, they're just involved in carrying the load. Masha'inkin, when we're dealing with a heavy load, so it's inevitably, so one is going to like push to the other, so to speak, and the other will push to him. And others are dealing with a heavy load that you have to take control over. So we could assume that each one somehow or another pushed himself on the other, and Mamela, he caused the other one to move, and Mamela, since he caused the other one to move, so therefore he's tummy. That's tummy. Halacha Yud. Toir shoyemakes azov. You have a toir, and he's hitting a zov. So the din is harei the toir. So obviously we're talking about he didn't touch the zov. He hit the zov without touching him, and he didn't move the zov. So Mamela, so he's toir. The toir is toir. However, the zov shehikes hator, the zov hit the tor. Now we're talking about, let's say, for example, the zov hit a punch at the tor. So lepel, the tor, because the punch hit the tor, so that's why the zov didn't fall. Whereas had the tor moved away. Let's say when two people are boxing with each other. So when one moves himself away, the other one is throwing a punch. So when the other one moves away, so he falls over. So the fact that he received the punch was like really supporting the one that was giving the punch. So over here we're saying, Nachamal, the Zov Shehikas HaTor, when the Zov hits the Tor, is Timo. So Memela, the Zov was Metami, the Tor. Why? Because Sheim Yimoshech HaTor, because if the Tor is going to move himself away, the Charei Tami Neifel, the Tami will fall down. The Nimtza Kilo Nishnolov. So as if the Tami is leaning on the Tor. And we learned before that when you're leaning on someone, so then that becomes, so first of all, he's a noisei. He's a noisei of the Zov. And the emes is that his begodim, Fichach, Av, Big Hator, is also Tmeim. Not only the person is supporting the Zov, but here the begodim are also supporting the Zov. In other words, Lepel is leaning on the person and his begodim are the Choroi to be Mekambet Tumas Medres. As we learned before, that begodim, even though they weren't made for Medres, but they do Medres together with the begodim. So therefore, the person becomes Tomei. He becomes Tomei, Rishon L'Tumah, Alts Noises Azov, but his begodim become an Avatuma. The begodim become an Avatuma al Sadin of Mishkav Azov. So it's Nachamal. So we have the Tomei, when the Torah hits the Tomei, so we're talking about he didn't touch him, so that's not Tomei. He's not Tomei. He's still Torah. Masha'enkin, when the Tomei hits the Torah, so then the Torah becomes Tamei because he's being supported by the Tamei. Now we learn when a person is a Noiseis Hazov, so he becomes Tamei. Als Tamei als Din, Azov is Metame b'mago b'masa. Now over here we're learning a tzir where, for example, the Tamei was hitting the Torah, so the Torah didn't carry him. But if the Torah would have moved away, so then the tummy would have fallen. So if the tummy the Torah wouldn't have stood in his place. He would have moved away, the tummy would have fallen. So the fact that the tummy was able to hit the Torah, and the tummy didn't fall, we look at the Torah that he was a noises tummy. So therefore, when the tummy hits a Torah, since the Torah, I'll leave it the emes, he really didn't carry him. And vice versa, it's a din d'Rabbanan. This din is a din d'Rabbanan that he has a din of a noisei. But nevertheless, since if he would have moved away, he would have fallen, so therefore he has a din as if he carried the tummy. Fakert, if the Torah hit the tummy, so over here we say that the Torah hit the tummy, he didn't move the tummy, so therefore the Torah remains tummy. Hagam l'churi, you could ask that if the Torah hit the tummy, so it's keilu like the Torah was leaning on the tummy, Now, if the Torah is leaning on the tummy, we learned before that when a Torah leans on the tummy, so he has a din of madaf. There's a din of madaf. Anything that's on top of the zov, madaf azov, is also tummy. Now, the whole din of madaf azov is only a drabonon. So the Mele Vaisto is in such a case where he didn't actually sit on the zov. He wasn't on top of the zov. You know, something that's mamish on top of the zov, regardless of what it is a rishon l'tumah midrabanan. But over here, he wasn't really on top of the zov. It's just that had the zov moved away, he would have fallen. So it's keilu like he leaned on the zov. So on that, the Chacham weren't geyser that there should be a din of madaf, that the Torah should have a din tumah mitzad madaf. But le'idah fakert, if the tumah punched the Torah, and now if the Torah would have moved away, so the tumah would have been carried by him, and that tumah would have been a deraisa. That says the idea of the Torah carrying the tumah is the deraisa din of neisei. So over here, this din is also included. Let's learn inside. Halacha yud toher shahaya makes azov. You have a Torah which is hitting the zov. So the din is harisa Torah. The Torah is toher because even though he was makes azov, obviously he didn't touch the zov. He wasn't on top of the zov. So memela he remains Torah. If the Zov hit the Torah, so then Timo, so the Torah becomes tummy from the tummy. Why? Because since Lepel, if the Torah would have moved away, the tummy would have fallen off. Is v'nimtza ki'ilu nishnalav, as if the tummy is lying on it. Now again, the tummy wasn't really on top of the Torah. He wasn't really he wasn't really lying on the Torah. But if the Torah would have moved away, so then the tummy would have fallen. So therefore, the fact that the tummy hit him is keilu he was nishnalav. Now that's working only this way, when the tummy hits the Torah. Masha'ingin, when the Torah hits the tummy, so even though lepel, if the Torah would have been on top of the tummy, so then the din would have been that the Torah would have been tummy midrabanan. But this Indian of keilu in nishnalav doesn't apply when the Torah hits the tummy, because the whole din is of the Rabbanan. So Memele, they didn't extend to the Rabbanan so far of Ki'ilu Nishnalav. Masha'inkin over here, where Be'etzem, if the tummy would be on top of the Torah, it would have been a Tumah Diraisa, because over there it's a din of Nesis Azov, so Nesis Azov is tummy. So Memele, this din of Ki'ilu Nishnalav, he's tummy. That's this din. The Nimtza Ki'ilu Nishnalav. The Fichoch, Av Big De HaTorah is also Tamim. So since we're saying that it's Ki'ilu Nishnalav, so that's Ki'ilu Nishnalav goes also on the begadim, as if the tummy is nishan on these begadim, and if the tummy is nishan on the begadim, so now the begadim become even tumas medres. But again, the person nishan olav, so it's Ki'ilu, he's noisis hazov. Masha'inkin, if we're saying it's Ki'ilu, that the big diator he's being nishan on the big diator, no, if he's nishan on the big diator, so then, like the Mefarshim say, the Rosh says, that then he would have a din of tumas medres. Let's learn this halacha again. Tor shahaya makes hazov. If a Tor hits the zov, says a Tor. So the Tor still remains Tor. He didn't move the zov. He wasn't held by the zov. So memela he's Tor. However, the zov sheikes hator is timu. Agam ulchur, he also didn't move. The answer is she'im yimoshech hator v'riyatamin neifel is v'nimtza ki'ilu nishnalav. So therefore, Chazal looked at it as if he was nishnalav. Memela it has a din ki'ilu, like the Torah is holding the zov. No, a Torah is holding the zov, so he's metame tumas masa. Lefichach av big de hator is also tmeim. Since we look at it as if nishnalav, so memela av big de hator are also tmeim. Mitzad this din of ki'ilu nishnalav, and lechura we're adding, and that's brought down from the Rosh that he himself is only a rishon l'tumah, because lepel he was l'neises hazov. Mashenkin the begodim have a din of tumas medus, so memela they have an avatumah. Halacha Yud Aleph. Now zov shenisa miktsasi al ator, a toher shenisa miktsasi al azov is nitma. Now we learned before that tumas Mishkav Umoshav is only if the roiv hazov was on top of this Mishkav Umoshav. Now that is when you take tumah from Mishkav Umoshav, and there's someone, a Torah that's sitting on a Mishkav Umoshav, for him to become tummy is only if roiv of him was sitting on this Mishkav Umoshav. Mashenkin, this din of tumas madaf, and al derazeh the din of tumas noisi is azov. On that you don't have to have that it should be reiv azov. It could be also miyat min azov. It's nachamol. Zov shenisa miktsasi lator. The Torah was only holding up part of the zov. Oy Torah shenisa miktsasi al azov. The Torah was on top of the zov, only miktsasi. So he's nitma. In this case, he's only nitma midrabanan. Ketzad. Et boy shel zov shehinicho l'mayla min haTorah. The Zov put his finger on top of the Torah. He's not touching the Torah. If he's touching the Torah, there's Dava Seredin. But over here we're talking about the Torah is holding up the Etzboi Shel Zov. Oi, HaTorah Sheniach Etzboi L'mayla Min HaZov. The Torah put his Etzboi L'mayla Min HaZov again. He's not touching the Zov. Is Nafal Pi Sheyesh B'neihem Evan Ekeru Ki Etzben is Areza Tovi Mitzad the Din of Noisei. A Noisei is Azov is Tomei even if he's Noisei Miktzis Azov. And Al Derech Zeh, the Madaf of the Zov is even if mixes of something is on the Madaf Azov, it becomes Tomei. V'chein Chiburi Azov, Shenisu Alator, you have the Chiburi Azov, which the Ram Musun Tai choice, which was on top of the Torah, or Chiburi Torah, not the Torah himself, but only the Chiburi Torah, which Shenisu Alazov, so that also causes that is a Tomei. Ki'ilu Nasa Kolechim Atzmi Shel Chaveira. It's as if he would have carried the whole Atzmi Shel Chaveira. In other words, the fact that it was only a part of him, a small part of him, and even not only a small part of him, but a chitzenizdika part of him, as we'll soon say. So nevertheless, the person becomes Tomei. Ve'eloin achiburim ashinayim, the teeth of atzipornayim, and the nails vaseir shalem. Ve'yiro li shetumas hu midivreim. This tumah is midivreim. So benegay, it's tumas madav. It's obviously midivreim. The whole tumas madav is midivreim. So the chiddush is benegay. When you say hanoiseis azov, hanoiseis azov is Tomei min hatera. So you don't have to carry the whole Zov, you could carry part of the Zov. And the Rambam is saying you don't even have to carry part of the Zov, you could also carry the Chiburi Azov. Chiburi Azov is you have a tooth of the Zov that's on top of a Torah. I'm sorry, you have a tooth of a, so if you have a tooth of a Zov that's on top of a Torah, so then the Torah is carrying part of the Zov. His hair is hanging on the Torah. So he's carrying part of the Zov, not mamish part. The finger of the Zov is part of the Zov. Over here is the Chiburi Azov. So when the finger of the Zov is on top of the Torah, so the Torah is Tomei min hatera. When the hair of the Zov is on top of the Torah, so the Rambam is saying, Yiroli, that tumah is only midrabona. Now, fakert, if the Zov is on top of the Torah, over here we're talking about that the Zov is on the Zov is on top of the Torah, so the Torah is Neisem as Zov. But if fakert, the Torah is on top of the Zov, the Torah is on top of the Zov, so Bechlal the Torah being on top of the Zov is only a Midrabanan. The whole musig of Madav is only a Drabanan. The whole musig Madav is only a Drabanan. Now we're saying it doesn't have to be the whole Zov being on top of the Torah. It could be even part of the Torah, part of the Torah being on top of the Zov. Madav Azov means the Torah is on top of the Zov. So it doesn't have to be the whole Torah being on top of the Zov. It could be part of the Torah on top of the Zov. And not only part of the Torah, but even the hair of the Torah being on top of the Zov, that would also be Madav, and that person, that Torah would become Tomei. And that's obviously Midrabanan, because the whole Madav is Midrabanan.